I want to tell you about the piece of the mixing audio process that is not talked about nearly enough. It's amazing to me. It blows my mind how many people have all the equipment, they have all the gear, they have all the plugins, they have all the cool mixing techniques, but they don't have this one thing that is absolutely critical to mixing good music. I'm talking about mindset. I'm talking about the mindset you have when you walk up to a console or when you sit down in your studio to start a new session. How do you think about the art of what you're about to do? Not just the mechanical, get from point A to point B, slap a compressor on that, call it good. How do you think about the art of what you're doing? In my opinion, this is the difference between somebody who can kind of get by mixing music and somebody who can really create great music in their mix. So let's talk about what a correct mindset actually looks like. I believe that it starts with understanding the objectives in mixing. So the way I see it, a mixing engineer has two primary objectives. The first objective is to ensure that everything the artist tries to communicate and convey through his music to the audience is actually interpreted by the audience in the way that they intend it to. Okay, so what do I mean by that? I mean that if you have a vocalist who's singing this really soft, this really heartfelt part of a song, but there's this weird thing in the mic or weird thing in the room that's just making it sound weird, and then it comes out of the PA and it doesn't sound right. Well, it's distracting, but it's also just not communicating what the artist intended to communicate with their music. So my job is to use the tools that I have to ensure that what the artist means to communicate is actually what the artist or what the audience hears and interprets. So that's job number one. The second job is to take the individual inputs and create something whole out of them. Notice I didn't say create something new out of them, because we're not changing necessarily what the artist intended. We're just taking all of those individual pieces of the puzzle and putting it together into something whole. This is the second primary objective of a mixing engineer. So what does it take to actually accomplish these objectives? So we know what we're trying to do. Now, what does it take to actually make that happen? So first, it takes technical knowledge. Like I mentioned, you have to know how to use your gear. You have to know how to run your console, how to deploy your PA, how to, use these tools, these plugins to do the job. But there's two parts to this. The second part is you have to know the art of mixing. You have to know the art of music. And if you just know the technical knowledge, your results are not nearly going to be what they need to be. All right, so let me give you an analogy that might kind of help drive this home. Let's say I bring a world famous chef, and then I also bring somebody who knows absolutely nothing about baking into my kitchen. I give them a recipe, I gave them all the ingredients, and I give them, an hour to make me some cookies. Let's say in an hour I come back and I try both of the results. I would almost certainly end up with two very different tasting cookies. Why is that? They both had the same recipe. They both had the same ingredients. They both had the same amount of time to create something. Well, the difference is that one person knows how to create something with the art of baking, and the other person has no idea. So it's more than just knowing the ingredients. It's more than just knowing the quantities of those ingredients. You don't just need to know the order and steps that you do all those things in. You need to know the art of what you're trying to do. You need to know things like the effect of temperature or humidity, or you need to know how this ingredient reacts with that ingredient, or, you need to know the art of what you're doing. There's an art and a science to everything. So the same principle applies in mixing. There's a certain level of engagement in the art of music that needs to happen when we're mixing. I don't just want to get the technical stuff right. I want to create music. So as a mixing engineer, it's really important to understand that everything that the band does goes through my hands before it reaches the audience. That's a really important thing to understand. That's a huge responsibility. And it's why the mindset that you approach mixing with is so incredibly important. So how do we develop the proper mindset for mixing? Well, the first thing is we approach mixing as a musician and as an artist, not just a technician. Anybody can learn how to push buttons and turn up faders and turn knobs, but not everybody knows how to employ the art of a mixing engineer. So you approach it like you would expect a vocalist or an instrumentalist to approach their performance. You wouldn't expect them to just know where the notes are on their instrument and know how to kind of pluck them out. You would expect them to be able to perform and to create music with their instrument. The same thing applies to us on a console or in a DAW or whatever setting we happen to be in. The second is we need to become a student of the art of music. We need to listen to great musicians. We need to listen to great mixes and then learn from them. Then we need to incorporate all those things that we learn into our own work. So this is the proper mindset for a mixing engineer. And I promise if you implement this mindset into your process, your mixes will only get better and better and better from there. So hopefully this was helpful for you. I know this is a little bit different of a topic than I usually tend to address on this channel, but this is honestly, I think, the most important thing that we could talk about, really understanding the art of what we're doing, because without it, there's really no there's technical, there's kind of sciencey things, but there's no beauty, there's no flexibility or creativity to what we do. And that's what makes music as great as we know it is. So hopefully this was helpful for you. As always, if you haven't downloaded my free mixing guide, you can go download it on my website, themixingprocess.com. I think it'll really help you work through your mixing sessions in an organized, systematic way and help get you the results in your process that you have worked really hard for. So thanks for watching. That's it for this one. We will see you on the next one.